What's the word, everybody? Welcome into a new edition of the By the Horns podcast presented by Toyota. Toyota has more all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles than any other brand, so find yours and shine on. Toyota, let's go places. Cam Smith rocking with my man, 𝗙𝐶 Johnson, 𝗬𝐶 HSN Insider. 𝗙𝐶 catching up us on all things Chicago Bulls, and especially after what we saw last night in the state of Florida. Coby White, career high, 44 points against the Orlando Magic. Stopped a two-game skid for the Bulls. They got that 125-123 victory against a Magic team that is, and these are 𝗵𝗶 𝗟𝗶𝗀's words heading into this Bulls matchup last night, that they're soul-searching. Just a weird spot for them to be in, especially with the amount of games that they've dropped in a row. And last night's loss for them was the fifth consecutive loss for Orlando. But 𝗙𝐶, you held down Bulls Countdown Live and halftime and the post-game show with Jason Goff and Kendall Gill. And I know you guys are having some really lively and exciting conversations watching Coby do his thing.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that jumps out to me, Cam, I said this on the show, was that, you know, he's with Vooch out and Zach in Sacramento, he's clearly the number one target on opponents' scouting reports. And he's also, you know, not even really that quietly. He's been playing through a troublesome ankle for a while. You know, while other guys take games off, he just continues to go out there, do treatment around the clock. And, you know, when we come in after games, he's got his, ankle in an ice bucket immediately for a long time. I mean, he's gutting this out. And so to put up a career high performance under those circumstances on the road, and, you know, 4 straight 20-point game too, it just speaks to who Coby is. He's a competitor, and you got to give him a lot of credit for doing that.
Yeah, no doubt about that, man, especially with that tough ankle that he's dealing with. I mean, you wouldn't think that, especially just how explosive he was last night. 𝗵𝗶 𝗟𝗶𝗀, you got welcome to another Coby White dunk and poster last night. Yeah, I'm sure it's a Duke-Carolina rivalry where Coby just really goes even harder on 𝗵𝗶 𝗟𝗀𝗀. But still, it was that dunk, 𝗙𝐶. It was a couple of catch and rips to the rim that he had against contact as well, where you wouldn't think that he's dealing with a tough ankle. But then also it speaks to just, one, his toughness, of course, but just him being a professional, saying that, hey, I know my team needs me. I have to step up and I have to produce. And it says a lot about Coby as a leader, and this team views him as one of the leaders on the team, especially like giving no excuses. I'm sure he could have easily decided to sit out, but understanding that, look, we have enough guys that are on the injured list, and I don't want to be another one. So let me make sure that I step up and play well. Yeah.
And I mean, you know, it just the way he attacked. I mean, he had 7 threes early. I mean, not all of them were early, but a lot of them were early. So he makes 7 threes, but down the stretch, he gave up the 3 and he just kept going at the rim. So that dunk on 𝗵𝗶 𝗟𝗀𝗀 was just one example of that. I mean, I think he was 6 for 8 in the paint and got to the line 6 times. So, you know, that's what I thought was so impressive about his scoring performance, was it kind of was all ways. I mean, he was getting in the line, he was making threes, he was attacking the rim. And yeah, big plays down the stretch. And just, you know, what can you say about the performance other than it was huge?
Yeah, definitely huge. So the last 4 games for Coby White's averaging 29 points, averaging 4 made threes, throw in the 5 rebounds that he's averaging. And what's impressive to me about this stat, and I'm going to throw it out there, 𝗙𝐶, he's averaging 2 steals in that stretch as well in the last 4 games. So really getting it done on both ends, and that's with a bum ankle. So salute to Coby White on that performance last night, because now this performance officially goes into the NBA record book, because we remember last year with the play-in 𝗙𝐶 at the United Center where I am against the Atlanta Hawks in the play-in, that Coby dropped 42. But since it's the play-in game, it doesn't go into the record books, where I'm not a fan of that, but still, we got a legit 44 points, career high for Coby White. So salute to him on that.
By the way, Coby's got a new injury now. See, I'm talking about playing through an ankle. He's probable, so he is going to play in Miami, but he's listed with right toe 𝗪𝗪𝗪. I don't even know how to pronounce this. Right toe 𝗪𝗪𝗪itis. Sounds like some kind of sore right toe is what I would say.
Right. It sounds like something that you want to catch or don't want to have.
Exactly. But anyway, that's my point. I mean, he's playing hurt. And I know everyone's banged up a little bit at this time of year, but Coby's a little more significant than others. And the fact that he's still playing at such a high level, kudos to him.
Yeah, definitely on that, man. Before we get into more of the injury report for the Bulls, we just got to shine a light on the other guys that have really found their comfort, found their footing with this Bulls team, and Tre Jones, Kevin Huerter, and also Zach Collins. KC, it's one thing, and I understand that these guys have been in the NBA a number of years as veterans, so a couple of these guys have been a part of trades. So it's never easy, though, to uproot yourself or uproot your family, move to another city, and just act as if nothing happened. Like, at the end of the day, these guys are human and they have human emotions. But for these three especially, it feels like with the time that they've been able to spend with the team and understanding the system and really getting acclimated just from a basketball standpoint, they found their stride, especially a guy like Zach Collins, who I've always liked his game coming out of Gonzaga, even before that, Bishop Gorman, when he was in high school. But now you're starting to see like another level to Zach Collins' game where he's been able to unlock an offensive end where he's been putting up double-doubles. Like, he just, and it's not against, the Washington Wizards or the Charlotte Hornets, never disrespect to them, but it's against some legit front courts in the NBA.
Yeah, and he's putting up double-doubles like with 3 or 4 or 5 assists too. I mean, like, so you can run offense through that guy. He's a smart player. He sees the floor well. His passing ability and the ability to run offense through him reminds me a little bit of Vooch. They're not the same player, obviously. Yeah. Vooch is a much better shooter, more skilled offensively. Zach is more physical. But in terms of their pass ability and ability to survey the floor and kind of serve as a hub and rubbing screens off of him, that in that sense, he reminds me of Vooch. I agree with you. I like them all the way back to Gonzaga. Zach Collins' cardinal sin as an NBA player has been not being able to stay healthy. When he's healthy, he has produced. Yeah. And he's fully healthy now, and he's credited both the Trailblazers and the Spurs organizations for helping him get there. And he told me once that, those were some trying times. Obviously, you lose confidence when you go through the injury situations that he's gone through. So you like to see a guy persevere like he has. And then I know we're going to get into the other two guys too, because Kendall made a really good point on the show last night. He's like, we all know that none of these guys are Zach LaVine, but all three of these guys know how to play. You just watch them; they know how to play basketball, man. They have high IQs, they make good decisions, and they're solid NBA players. I'm not saying they're stars like Zach LaVine, but they're solid NBA players.
Yeah, I'm with you. And to Kendall's point, I mean, one of those guys, Tre Jones, I love when he's on the court because he's, to me, how he plays a point guard, like the definition of a point guard, not only getting people into the offense, but just how he moves off of the basketball. Defensively, he's going to pick you up full court, 94 feet, and make sure that you work. And so he's a guy that is not going to force anything. I think that's the calmness of Tre Jones. And I think it's a family trait, obviously, with his older brother, Tyus Jones, who plays for the Phoenix Suns. But he's been so impactful as well. And again, it's not easy coming into the situation where not only when you think of just like the depth that the Bulls have at the guard position, but as a point guard, trying to gain the trust of your new teammates out there and have them really rely on you to be one of the guys that can set them up and put them in great positions. Tre Jones has shown that not only can he do that, but he can score the basketball as well. And that's something that's been a little more surprising to me and maybe for other fans, and I'm sure for casual fans out there that don't really know who he is, have to be impressed with what Tre Jones has been. And he's really been a steady point guard, something that he's been his entire life.
Yeah, you heard it right after the trade deadline from Arturas Karnisovas saying, he's one of the few remaining true point guards in the league. And Billy Donovan said the same thing. And I asked Tre about that, and he said he kind of like embraces that. He wears that as a badge of honor, because obviously Chris Paul, the point guard, is still in the league and the gold standard of that. But in terms of just pure point guards, there aren't a lot of them. And that's not a knock on any of the great point guards in the league. It's just most of them have become like hybrid scoring guards that also run offense. Right. And Tre has scored way more than I thought he would. But the big thing that jumps out to me is he is a really high IQ player. He reminds me a lot of his brother in that regard. He makes really solid decisions. I thought in the Orlando game, he was spectacular defensively. He is undersized, but his responsibility, like he was always responsible in team defensive schemes. He was filling gaps. He had a big steal late. I was really impressed with his defense in Orlando. And then you throw 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists on top of that. I've been impressed by that guy, and I knew I knew he was good, but he's probably been better than I would have thought in his Bulls tenure here.
Yeah, I'm with you, Casey. And those 20 points was a career high as a Chicago Bull. I know he only has a handful of games underneath his belt for the Bulls. But again, that it speaks to just the scoring aspect that he brings. And Casey, I know you'll appreciate this because I really view this thing when it comes to this movement on the court as a lost art, but just moving and cutting without the basketball. Like you see so many times with Tre Jones that he just gets maybe 4 to 6 points just off of cutting and backdooring and just moving without the ball. And I think that's one of those things that, again, is a lost art, but also when you see it being used by a guy that's one undersized, but then also understands how to make himself impactful on the court, despite him being not one of the biggest players, especially at his position. He just finds his way to just make that impact for his team and then gets underneath you defensively. And the one thing that stands out to me, and I love your point about what he does defensively, is that he does a lot of things with his rotations that you said that don't get charted. Like there's no stat for making the right rotation or standing up a ball handler or making sure that he's probably faking and dropping just to give a ball handler or a potential scorer cause for a pause and moment so that other guys can kind of get back to where they should be on the defensive end. So it's a great pickup. I think that Tre Jones for sure is going to be one of those guys you look down the road of like, man, Tre Jones has been in the league 15 years. Yeah, because he just knows how to play the game and he doesn't have any wasted movement out there, Casey.
Yeah, and like trade deadlines can be funky. I mean, they can throw teams into disarray and different rotations, and it could take a while for teams to kind of find their footing. And I know the one-loss record hasn't been great since the trade deadline, but in terms of style of play, all three of those guys have assimilated themselves very quickly and also put up good numbers. I mean, Kevin Huerter's on a career best 6-game streak with at least three three-pointers. We all know, he can shoot the ball, but he obviously was struggling to do so this season before the trade while he was in Sacramento. I've talked about those guys. They said, they said that, the Bulls style of play, moving the ball side to side, playing fast, making quick decisions, taking threes, they all felt like immediately that they felt like that fit their skill set. And so that's why I think you've seen the quick assimilation by all three players. And again, one-loss record may not have borne all this out, but in terms of style of play, I mean, they've been competitive in a lot of these games. I know there's no moral victories in the NBA, but they've played good teams down to the stretch. And I think all three of those guys have acquitted themselves pretty well at this point.
Yeah, for sure, especially with Kevin Huerter getting back to the three-point marksman that we knew him as when he was with the Sacramento Kings and also the Atlanta Hawks. I mean, he's shooting nearly 40% from three and kind of getting back to that 22-23 season with the Kings where he shot 40% from three. And just the way he's shooting, Casey, any guy that shoots the basketball at this high of a clip, especially the amount that they're making per game, it's like I call that shooting the leather off the basketball. Like that's what Kevin Huerter is doing, is shooting the leather off the basketball. And it's not – I haven't seen him be in a position where he's just – shooting threes or taking attempts just to take them. It's all within, as you mentioned, the flow of the offense and just finding his spots as that ball rotates and move around. And again, it's just another one of those guys within the three newcomers that the Bulls have that just knows how to play and knows how to get his shots.
Yeah, he had that one heat check game. I'm trying to remember which game he had 7 threes, where he jacked a couple up there. But you know what? When you make 7 threes, you deserve that. Okay.
Yeah.
But
the Philly game in Philly.
The
Philly game. Yeah, with the 7-11. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There were a couple heat checks that game, but to your point, it's like he's back. What he really likes is he's back to being on the move more because, there's not a lot of stagnation. There's not a lot of isolation in the Bulls offense. It's read and react and moving the ball side to side and playing fast and making quick decisions. And he talked about being frustrated with Sacramento, where his offense was a little more predictable. He was more, stand-up corner three-point shooter. And, Stacey King has been on this from the jump. He's better when he's on the move. And the Bulls have put him on the move a lot more, and you're seeing the results from the three-point line.
And it makes it tougher for a defense, for a guy at 6'7" that can shoot the basketball. A little bit tougher to try and challenge those shots, especially when he's on the move. So, I mean, I'm only 6'1". I can't speak to that. KC can probably shed light on this. So, when smaller guys try to close out on you when you're shooting a shot, you don't even see them. You just see the rim. You just see the ball going in the hoop. But that's the advantage of being a 6'7" shooter, is that you don't see anything but the rim and the ball going in.
Yeah, I'm only 6'4", so yeah.
Hey, look, I would take 6'4" over 6'1" for sure, but definitely it's something that's an advantage in my book. But shout out to Kevin Huerter. Tre Jones and Zach Collins really finding their footing with this Bulls team, and just this offense that really fits their games. I mean, they fit sometimes seamlessly when you watch them, especially a game like last night with Tre Jones, Kevin Huerter, and Zach Collins kind of struggled a little bit because of foul trouble. But still, if you look at this, the run that they've been able to have, it's been more positive from them and what we've been able to see. So at this point, КC, as we talked about the newcomers, and of course with Coby, how he's dealing with his injuries, but still just gutting it out and battling. What are like kind of your impressions of this team, and you have your pulse on the team, of just your thoughts on where they're going? I think it's about like 20 games left in the regular season for this group. I mean, just kind of give it to us. What do you think?
They're going to the playing game. I mean, it's like their inevitability at this point. It's going to be the third straight season. No matter what you do, what organizational philosophy you have, tank, not tank. They're just they went 2-9 and they increased their lead on the 10th seed. It's insane.
Like that's the thing that's like, it doesn't make sense. Like, how do you go 2-9 and increase your lead? But obviously we know with Philadelphia and Brooklyn, the situation is going on over there, but it's just still weird though. Like, so.
So they're going. We should prepare for playing basketball now. Could they catch Atlanta in 9? Probably not. There's a little bit of a gap right there, but there's a lot. There's 19 games left. We'll see what happens. But I fully expect them to finish 10th and be playing a playing game on the road. Opponent to be determined. But that's what I see. And well, there is still. There's always storylines and stuff to prove. I mean, 𝗵𝗇 𝗵𝗹 learning how to be physical. You're seeing, he's had tough matchup after tough matchup. He's got 𝗵𝗨 𝗵𝗀𝗀 last night. That's a lesson in physicality. Coby is the number one option. You're seeing how he can handle that. There's always the new guys. There's always stuff to analyze, but I see them finishing 10th.
I'm with you. So we might as well get ready for that play-in edition of the By the Horns podcast for sure. And of course, for the fast break with KC Johnson. Joe, just get ready, Bulls fans, whether it's the Atlanta Hawks, who we saw last year in the play-in, or possibly maybe the Orlando Magic. We talked about how they're skidding. If they continue to skid, then they're looking at switching spots with the Bulls when it comes to the 10th and 9th seed. So, KC, you're talking about this earlier in the podcast, because the Bulls' next game is going to be tomorrow night, Saturday night, as we record this podcast. It is Friday. The Bulls will be in Miami to finish up their 2-game road trip. You said the Coby is probable, but as you look at the rest of that injury report, who stands out to you? What stands out to you? Because there's been talk on a certain name and guy when it comes to this Bulls roster that's been on that injury list, that people are differing in opinions with what he should do and what the Bulls front office should do with him.
Yeah, so Lonzo Ball, doubtful, Nikola Vucevic, doubtful, and the guy you're referring to, Patrick Williams, doubtful. And that one is a little bit of a surprise to me because, I talked to Patrick coming out of halftime of the Cleveland game on our game broadcast, and the window of availability for him to return from that tendon strain was this weekend, and he practiced the day before the Orlando game pretty intensely, and they didn't quite like how it felt the day of the Orlando game, so they didn't play in that game. But my understanding was they're going to again put him through a workout on the day we're taping this Friday in Miami, and assuming that went well, he was going to be playing in Miami. Well, the fact he's listed as doubtful, that does not bode well for him playing in Miami. So then the next game would be the home game here against Brooklyn. But in terms of like any questions about, why not just shut him down? Absolutely not. Patrick Williams needs to play for multiple reasons. He has not played incredibly well this season. He's been in and out of the lineup, obviously, with injuries. And Billy Donovan's talked repeatedly about wanting to see Patrick Williams and 𝗵𝗇 𝗵𝗹 together. Well, 𝗵𝗇 𝗵𝗹 is now starting, Patrick Williams coming off the bench, but you can still get those guys staggered and playing together, and that is your front court of the future. So Patrick Williams needs to be out there. If Vooch doesn't play again, which I'm not suggesting is going to be the plan, because Vooch always wants to be out there. I do expect him back, but if Vooch doesn't play again, I'm cool with that. You know what you have in Nikola Vucevic. Patrick Williams, you still need to see him out there, and I know he wants to be out there because that's what he told me in that in-game interview on our broadcast in the Cleveland game. And so I'm a little surprised he's doubtful for the Miami game, and hopefully we'll see him next week at the United Center.
Yeah, and for me, I'm just thinking about Patrick Williams' psyche, just for him, the amount of time that he's missed in his career, but then also just him wanting to just get out there and play. Like, that's the big thing for him. It's just like, at the end of the day, no matter who it is, like even you and I, Casey, like when you deal with injuries and just kind of putting ourselves in the position of Patrick when it comes to his injury situation, you just like, I just want to play. And even when I spoke to him before the season during media day, he was just like, I just want to hoop. I put the work in. I just want to hoop. And just the setbacks with the injuries is really tough. So then that's why I go back to the psyche of just getting him out there, allowing him to play, and really just at this point, play carefree. Just show what you can do, show what you can bring when it comes in playing with Modest on the floor. Because as you mentioned, that duo, that tandem is part of the Bulls' future. And so that's what you want to see from a front office standpoint. Then also for Patrick Williams' standpoint of how I can grow with Modest so we can become a more formidable duo and also help this team.
Yeah, and you can take momentum into the offseason. So, like, if he finishes on a positive note, is playing well, gets some reps, gets some confidence, that's good for him and for the organization. So, again, I thought he'd be playing on this trip. Not for sure, but I thought I wasn't expecting to see doubtful today. I thought I would see a questionable or hope in an ideal world probable. The fact I'm seeing doubtful is surprising. But, again, hopefully he's back on the court next week at the United Center.
All right, Bulls fans, we have 19 more games left in the regular season for the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls are sitting 10th in the Eastern Conference. Again, that could improve. I know some people don't want to hear that, given what's ahead and whether, some people want them to be. But Orlando continues to skid, and that's why I say they could improve, because the Magic have just been that bad. I mean, they're sitting 9th in the East, but just something that we'll definitely keep our eyes on as we move forward, especially with this upcoming, the next 10 games, KC. Only 3 home games in that stretch, and the bulk of those road games will be when the Bulls hit that West Coast trip, and they will get to face off against a familiar guy in Zach LaVine with that Sacramento Kings team. So, again, a lot to unpack. A lot of conversation will be waiting for us as we can unpack a number of different things there, KC.
Yeah, Zach LaVine, Player of the Week, reigning Western Conference Player of the Week. So looking forward to seeing him. Zach LaVine turns 30 on Monday. He finally cracks the 30 mark. So there you go.
Wow. All right, Zach LaVine turning 30. Time's changing for sure on that one. For sure. And he was also tapped into the Bulls game last night. I mean, he was watching Kobe's drop 44, and I can't say the exact word that he said, but he said Coby White. So I'm just going to leave it at that. You can put 2 and 2 together and know what Zach was really saying. So still supportive of his guy, Coby, and making sure that he does his thing. We appreciate everybody for being supportive of the By the Horns podcast presented by Toyota. Toyota has more all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles than any other brand. So find yours and shine on. Toyota, let's go places. For the one and only K.C. Johnson, I'm Cam Smith. We appreciate everybody for tapping in to this edition of the By the Horns podcast. We will see you soon.